Okay, good morning. We are getting towards the end of Perek Yutes. It's been a long Perek. We're getting towards the end of Perek Yutes in Mesilas Yesharim. I apologize that it took a few days longer to get started. Once the Zman started, it's interesting. This whole injury that I missed a few days because of. I was on the phone walking outside here in Landers. I was walking outside, and I walked down the steps over there going to the Opal, I walked down the steps, and I stepped down wrong, and it hurt my foot, and my foot hurt my back hurt my leg, and everything has been excruciating pain. But what's interesting, there's a certain midah that I was thinking about, that the Balei Musar talk about, and it's a certain midah that's bichlal in life, a very good midah, is that some of us have a struggle that when life surprises us, we're like a deer in the headlights. We don't know what comes next. We're like in shock. And it becomes a little bit hard to like regain, we're like, whoa, what just happened? 1 second. Everything stops. And I felt that struggle because I was just like walking, like there was no, like, from 1 second to the next, suddenly I was dealing with a big issue. That I couldn't be here, and I had to get a doctor. So from 1 second to the next. There's a midah that I admire very much and try very hard to learn, which is, at any moment, HaKadosh Baruch Hu can put us into any situation. We have a job to do. We land on our feet, no pun intended. We land on our feet, and we serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu properly. To be able to do that, to be able to have that. One day you'll have a baby. And even though you knew for 9 months that the baby is coming, but it's just like, okay, now what? What do I do? What's expected of me? For my wife, for myself, for my learning, for my davening, for my parnasa. And certainly when things happen in a sudden way, unfortunately, usually the sudden things are not the good things. But sometimes sudden things happen, and just to be able to just like, okay, we move on. We continue doing what we do. We stay the course. We stay focused. It's a very, very big midah. Rav Leuchter tells this story that one time, and people don't understand the story correctly. They focus on the wrong part of the story. But he says that one time he was late for a vad from Rav Volba. He was a Talmud of Rav Volba, and he was late for a vad. And if you know Rav Leuchter, he's a very, very, very big guy. He's a big person, not just physically. He's a big person spiritually also. But he was running like a hulk of a guy, running through the streets of Yerushalayim. And he runs into the room where the Vad is, and he pushes open the door, and he knocks over a Volba onto his back. That was not what he intended. So he said the Volba didn't check who knocked him down. And he just got up, dusted himself off, and continued the Vad from where he was up to. Now, people think regardless of the story that he didn't check who knocked him down. To me, that's pasha. Of course he didn't check who knocked him down. He didn't want to be advised about it. Whatever, that's pasha. But wouldn't you be like, okay, what just happened? Wouldn't you like, to be able to just be like, okay, where are we holding? Oh yeah, I was just saying. And to be able to keep going is a certain tremendous midah. So that's what I'm learning from this situation, like to try to work on that midah. That like, I have a schedule, I'm here, I have things I do. And even at home, when I couldn't come here, I tried as much as possible to do what I need to do whatever a meeting, or say, to try to do what I need to do. And the other part is even when you can't do what you need to do, but to be able to handle that properly and not to be like, okay, everything's ruined, my day is gone, I'm stuck here. I was in bed for at least a day and a half. I was completely in bed, could not get up. So, is there a way to serve Hashem in that situation? I'm not on the Madrega, Michelle, that I sat with a brisker of like this. I'm not, that's not who I am. But there's still, it's Madrega. But it's a Madrega. I mean, someone who's that attached to learning that he can do that. I did manage one of the days to sit on my couch and learn with the Chavrusa. It wasn't a brisker of, it was a Beis HaLevi. And I was able to, at least on the phone with the Chavrusa, be able to learn with him. I considered that a lot of hard work, Of course it's a Madrega. But it's not my Madrega. It's not my Madrega, but I could try to be nice to my wife while I'm asking her to get me things. I could still take an interest in my children. My children are worried about me. They're checking on me, and I'm just like, go away. I'm not, like that's not. There's an avodah to do there, and that's something to think about. Like sometimes we're thrown into surprising situations, and the speed with which we can chop what's happening, and lean into it and do the right thing. That's a certain midah. That's bichlal in life, a great talent to have, because there are twists and turns in life. In any event, in Meselas Yesharim, we're towards the end of Perek Yud Tes, and we're discussing the fact that it's important for people to be mitzta'er tsar mamish ala galus ala churban. It's important for us to feel the pain of galus and the pain of the churban, which is certainly not something that comes easily to us. Sometimes when we recognize the sorry state that we're in Galus, with all of the beauty of Klal Yisrael and with all of the greatness that we have in Galus, we know it's a fraction of what we're capable of, and the machlokes in Klal Yisrael and the all the issues and all the struggles and all the anti-Semitism and all the attacks and all the distractions and how distracted we are from Ruchnius, how hard it is for us today to plug into Ruchnius for an extended period of time just to be with Hashem. So it makes you kind of realize that we need something to change, and that the big change would be Mashiach coming. That would be Zeicha to Mashiach, and it's important to recognize Chasidus means someone who goes the extra mile, who isn't just thinking about what his obligation to Hashem is, but he's thinking about what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants. Like, he's thinking about what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants, Kaviyachal, like what Hashem needs. And he's thinking about that. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to be close to us. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to have a Beis HaMikdash, where he could put his Shechinah, and we could come visit 3 times a year. And we can have all the shefa and all the greatness and all the intimacy with HaKadosh Baruch Hu that Hashem craves to share with us. And how lucky are we that the Creator of the world, his strongest ratzon, is that he wants to be with us. That is his strongest ratzon. But it's appropriate, if we want to please Hashem, to make that our strongest ratzon as well. Can you imagine one day, one example, I like to give this example, imagine, I think I've used it before, but just to bring out that point, imagine the chassan that got engaged, and he's so excited. His Kala is the best girl ever. He's like just so excited. They get along so well, and everything matches, and he just has such a yearning that he should be able to be married with her. He wants to go through life with her, and their engagement is just like a blur of good times, and they get ready and they learn the halachas and they get an apartment and the parents are involved and they prepare for the wedding, and then the week before the wedding they stop talking to each other, as is our minhag, most people's minhag. They stop talking to each other, or certainly seeing each other the week before the wedding, and it's a hard week for him. He misses her. He's gotten used to having her in his life, and so they're so close to getting married, and he's like yearning for her. And then finally the day of the chasana comes, and he's by the chassan tish, and she's over there where the kala is, and he doesn't see her, and he just hears, the tumult over there by the lady's side, and he just can't wait. He wants to go in there. He wants to see her. And then finally the music starts, and he starts walking to the badekin, his father on one side, his future father-in-law on the other side, everyone following behind, his friends dancing like Meshagayim in front of him, screaming, yelling, excited, and he walks into the room, and he's waiting to see his kala. He just wants the crowd to part so he can see his kala. And sure enough, they get into the room, and as they get further in, the guys kind of move to the side, and the two fathers with the chassan step forward, and he sees his kala for the first time in a week. And he walks over to her, and he says, "I am so excited to see you." And she's like, "Really? Because I could have really used another 2 weeks of prep for this wedding." How would he feel that moment? Can you imagine? It'd be hard for him to go down the chuppah, no? Can you imagine? Like, he's like all heart, all love, arms stretched out. And she's like, it's not a good time. Can you imagine the down? Imagine how, So someone who wants to please HaKadosh Baruch Hu, all HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants is to be close to us. All he wants is that there should be a Beis HaMikdash where we can have Ashura Shechinah. That's all he wants. And we're like, Hashem, I hear that that's what you want. I'm kind of happy with the way things are. That's not the chassid. The chassid that's concerned to go above and beyond, he would never settle for that. We're up to the Va'al Heder Zeh Hadavar. Okay? The Al Heder Zeh Hadavar, if this thing is missing, if this part of serving Hashem is missing, that we're not davening to Hashem for the building of the Beis HaMikdash, Hisra'im Hanavi, the Navi complained. He said, Vayar ki ein ish. And he looked, there was no man, there was nobody davening. Vayishtaimim, and he was amazed. Ki ein mafgiya, because there's nobody davening. V'omar, and the Navi says, Va'abit, and I looked. Ve'ein oizer, and there's no help. Ve'eshtaimim, and I was confused. Ve'ein soimech, there's nobody to lean on. There's nobody to depend on. V'omar, the Navi Yirmiyah said, Tzion, we're talking about Tzion here. Tzion is Yerushalayim. We're talking about Tzion here. Ve'ein doirish la, nobody's inquiring about her. Nobody cares about her. Upirshu Zechreina Levracha, and Chazal explained, if Hashem said it's Tzion and nobody's inquiring about her, so what does that mean? It means that we have to inquire about her. Mechlal de ba'id risha. We need to be talking to Hashem about Yerushalayim. We need to be talking to Hashem about Eretz Yisrael. We need to be talking to Hashem about bringing Mashiach. So that all Yidden could live together in unity, with peace, with achdus, together, and serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu in a joyous, healthy, vibrant way, living our true selves, like with full vibrancy. Can you imagine? We're not going to have to turn into different people when Mashiach comes. Mashiach will come, and he's going to be there for us, the people that we are. But we're going to discover within ourselves that there will be kaichos that were locked up because we were in Galus, and we're going to discover parts of ourselves that we hardly knew existed. And we're going to find that we're healthier than we thought, and we're stronger than we thought, and we're more spiritual than we thought. And all of the tension and the struggle with the Yetzer Hara will become so much easier. It will just be such a much easier, inspiring world. And it's important that we daven for that to happen. Harei kan, you see here, shechayavim anachnu bazeh. This is an obligation. Ve'ein lanu lipater. We should not excuse ourselves mipnei miot kaychenu, because do I have the strength to bring Mashiach? You think my tefillah is going to bring Mashiach? No, don't excuse yourself, because Hashem wants to see that you care. Let's say you can't bring Mashiach, but you could show that you care. You know, guys, I'm limping around these days. So guys come over, like, what could I do? Can I do something? What can I do? Like, what am I going to tell you to do? What can you do? There's nothing for you to do. Maybe Ethan can get me lunch one day, But there's not much to do. But still, when someone asks, what could I do? What are they saying? What are they actually saying? They're saying, I care. That's what they're saying. They're saying, I care. This means something to me. And that's very reassuring. And I feel the connection to the guys from that. So imagine HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he's waiting to connect with us. Okay, maybe I alone can't bring Mashiach, but I can get up by Mincha today, and I can say, Hashem, I care. I care that you're in pain. I care that you want to be close to us. It matters to me. And that's something that we could do. And on this type of thing, we learned in the Mishnah, it's not on you. You don't have to finish the job. You don't have to be able to do the whole thing. But but you're not a ben chayrin to just say, okay, I can't do it alone, so I'm not going to do it at all. No, I can do mine. I have my job. The whole Klal Yisrael has to daven for Mashiach. Okay, they should, but I can do mine. The Omar Oid Hanavi, the Navi Yeshaya said, Ein menahela. There's nobody taking care of her, meaning Yerushalayim. Mikol Bonim Yelada, from all of the sons she gave birth to. Because from the whole Klal Yisrael that thrived there, no one's caring about her. The ein machzik biyada. There's nobody holding on to her. Mikol banim gidela, from all the children she raised. Such beautiful language. The Omar kol habasar chatzir. The chol chastoi kitzitz hasada. We'll see what this means in a second. Upirshu Shechinah Levracha Chazal explained that what this means is shekol chesed she'oisim la'atzmam heim oisim. That all the chesed that people do, they're doing for themselves. L'toivas nafshem or lahana'asam. Sometimes we do chesed, but we're really not doing it for the person that we're doing it for. We're doing it for ourselves. It makes us feel good. It looks good. We're doing it for ourselves. The guy who goes to be Menachem Avel and never leaves. It's one of the biggest mistakes people make. They go to be Menachem Avel. The Avel is sitting there. He's trying to say a story about his father or mother for the 10 millionth time that week, and you're sitting there. Maybe you're even asking the same stupid questions that 500 other people asked him, like what happened? Which is not appropriate to ask in a Beis Avel. What was he sick with? It's irrelevant. What, are you writing an article about him? It's irrelevant. If someone's sitting shiva because they lost a loved one, it's not the time to start asking them biographical information. If he's sharing, so that's fine. It's not our job to ask those questions. And every person who's ever sat shiva knows that you have these guys who come in and they don't leave. Women also. They don't leave. They hang out. They're there for an hour, for 2 hours. What are you doing there? Like, you came, you consoled, leave. I know people who have very close friends who were sitting shiva that they stayed in the house just to get people to go, to suggest to people to go. Okay, like they need a break now, something like that. Because sometimes the person won't leave. Why is the person not leaving? Because he so badly wants to do chesed? Or because he's in pain? Or he wants the attention? Or he likes the, So I'm not saying there aren't people who misread the room and they really do want to give and they stay for too long. They probably are. But all too often we do chesed to satisfy ourselves and not to do what the person actually needs. Some people are ge'onim in chesed. They really, really think they could be yoyer to what does the person actually need. The person that remembers a close friend lost a loved one, and you remember to give the guy a call a month later and see how he's doing. That's real chesed. Everyone forgot about it. It's not in the news anymore, There's no more WhatsApps about that shiva. The family has moved on, but when someone goes through a loss, they don't move on so fast. When someone checks in, that's real chesed. Someone loses her husband, and it comes a yontif time, and you pick up the phone. Any of you could do this. You pick up the phone and you say, I know you have young sons that need to go to shul. Would you like me to bring them to shul? That's chesed, no? That's thinking about what she might need. It's not a headliner. It's just chesed. Things like that. So that's what he's saying, that like, kol chesed sha'osim, the chesed they do is la'atzmam heim oisim. They're doing it for themselves. L'toivas nafsham, for their own benefit, or lahana'asam, and for their pleasure. Ve'ena miskavdim l'kavana hashleima hazois. They're not having in mind the fullest of intentions. V'loi mevakshim al iloi hakavod u'ge'ulasan shel Yisrael. When they daven to Hashem, they're not davening for Hashem. That the kavod of Hashem should grow. That Yisrael should be nigal. Harei efshar l'kavod ha'elyon lehisrabois. Ela b'ge'ulasan shel Yisrael u'beriboy kvaydam. There's only one way for Hashem's kavod to increase in this world, and that's if our kavod increases. If we are living in Eretz Yisrael, if we are the powerful nation that we could be, if we are doing the right thing, if we stand for what's good and right and ethical and moral in this world, if we're an example to all the nations around us, that brings kavod to Hashem, and that will happen in its fullest when Mashiach comes. Shezeh talui b'zeh be'emes. The two things are dependent on each other: Hashem's kavod and our kavod. Like it says in the Tana D'Velio that we mentioned before, that a person needs to be able to sigh, to feel pain about the kavod of Hashem and the kavod of Klal Yisrael. Those are the two things that are interlocked with each other: the honor of Hashem and the honor of Klal Yisrael. When you see God in the news, when you see Jews in the news in a negative way, it doesn't bring honor to Hashem. When you see a newspaper article about Jews fighting with each other, it doesn't bring honor to Hashem. When you see Yidden that don't stand up for what the Torah represents, that does not bring honor to Hashem. But on the other hand, when we do stand up for the honor of Hashem, when we do recognize that we're His representatives in this world, then what we do brings covet to Him. But there's a limit. As long as we're in Gullus, even this thing, like the hostages were returned. We couldn't be happier. The hostages were returned. It's incredible. Our happiness is only tempered by the fact that they suffered for 2 years, and that unfortunately many of them did not return alive. That's the sadness that we have. The fact that they were finally freed gives us tremendous simcha. Who do we owe it to that they were freed? Donald Trump. Overall. And good for him. That's good. It's good for him. He did something good. He was he's an interesting guy with an interesting history and an interesting ethics, and some people love him and some people hate him, and everyone has an opinion about him. But the bottom line is that he did the job and he got the hostages out, right? I feel like it's a lack of covet for Hashem that the nation of Klal Yisrael, the great, incredible, majestic nation of Klal Yisrael, needed Donald Trump to save them. That's not respectful to us. As great of a guy as he might be, it's not respectful to us. We shouldn't need that. We should depend only on HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We should be able to see Nisim v'Niflois. I remember I wrote an article. If you want, I can send it to you. I wrote an article. I don't know if you remember, a bunch of years ago, a bunch of Rabbanim and Talmidei Chachamim were killed with an Arab that went into a shul in Har Nof with a machete. Okay? It's a horrible story. Tversky, yes. Tversky passed away from that. He was killed. Hashem Yinko Im Damai. And it's amazing. The guy walked into a shul and massacred people that were sitting and learning Torah, or they were finishing davening, whatever they were doing. And you ask yourself, how could it be? How could it be? How could it be that someone is in Yerushalayim, in a Beis Medrash, with a talis and tefillin on, davening to Hashem, and a person is allowed to kill that person? How could that be? Is that a covet for Hashem? It's a lack of covet Shemayim. It's a lack of covet for Hashem. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu, for whatever his cheshbonos are, is being silent when that happens. But we can't be silent. We need to tell HaKadosh Baruch Hu that we're being makbid on his covet. Don't forget about it, in addition to the Talmidei Chachamim that were killed, all the Torah that they had yet to learn, all the Torah that they had yet to teach. But I'm being moicha for the covet of Hashem. Someone could walk into Hashem's house and do that. You don't get enraged. Someone could walk into Hashem's city, to Hashem's house, while a person is wearing tefillin and do that. That's the covet of Hashem that's missing. When we have to daven for a time that it's impossible, something can't take place. You can't do that. There was once a time when David HaMelech was the king of Klal Yisrael. And David HaMelech was moving the Aron of Hashem from where it was Begalus back to Yerushalayim. And to make a long story short, the Aron started to fall. The Aron, as we know, carries itself. It doesn't need anyone to carry it. In fact, it carried the people that carried it. The people that held on to the Aron, they were carried by the Aron. It didn't need to be carried. And it was considered a little bit of a pagam that somebody reached to hold up the Aron. The Aron doesn't need your help. And that person died on the spot. They touched the Aron, he died. His name was Uzzah. And there's a lot to say about that story, but what I'm pulling out of that story is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is fire. You know how many times a Kohen Gadol that wasn't a Yirei Shemayim went into the Kodesh HaKadoshim on Yom Kippur and did not come out alive? Because he wasn't worthy to go into the Kodesh HaKadoshim. Because HaKadosh Baruch Hu is great, great, great beyond our comprehension. Can you explain to me, Yonatan, explain to me how it could be that a Jew walks into the Kodesh HaKadoshim and he has a little bit of bad thoughts maybe in his head. Maybe he did an Aveira and he dies. But Goyim were able to rip apart the Paroiches and do Aveiras in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. Does that make sense to you? That's because the kavod of Hashem is diminished when we're diminished. And if we want the fire back, nobody touches a Yid. You touch a Yid, you mess with a Yid, you're messing with Hashem. Nobody attacks Klal Yisrael. What, are you crazy? You're not attacking Klal Yisrael. You don't want to mess with the King of Kings. You know, this fire, it's a reality. The honor of Hashem is a reality. That's what we have to be davening for. Mis'aneach al kvoidei shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu v'al kvoidan shel Yisrael. Let's read one more sentence here to sum it up, and then we'll start the next Inyan next time. Nimtzeis lamed. So what did we learn from here? Sheshnei dvarim yesh be'inyan zeh. That there are two parts to our intentions, to our kavanos when we serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Echad be'kavana b'chol mitzvah v'avodah. The first thing is in our intention, in every mitzvah and avodah that we do, shetia le'ilui kvoidei shel makom. Do the mitzvah in honor of Hashem. Okay, right after we finish Mussar, you guys are going to sit down to learn. Learn and have in mind, I'm learning to honor Hashem. Whose Torah are you learning? Hashem's Torah. You're learning Hashem's Torah. You're bringing honor to Him because you're showing how important the words of Hashem are to you. Do it don't just do it without thinking. Do it and say to yourself, I'm doing this to honor HaKadosh Baruch Hu, to honor Hashem. What an honor it is to HaKadosh Baruch Hu that His creations are doing what they can to bring Him nachas. And second of all, hatzar, the pain, the habakasha and the requests from Hashem, al iloy hakavod hazeh, that Hashem's kavod should be raised, sheyeyaseh b'shleimus, that we should be able to that the kavod of Hashem should be able to be done with perfection, the iloy kvoidan shel Yisrael, through the raising the honor of Klal Yisrael, the shalvasan and their peace. And Klal Yisrael is that peace. It's an honor to Hashem. When we're constantly being targeted from within and from without, we're constantly being targeted. That's not an honor to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We should be zaycha. Could you imagine? Talk about a shock. We should be zaycha to experience that giloy, that revelation of the kavod of Hashem. Don't be afraid of it. Hashem knows that we're not on the highest madrega like the generations before us. But He loves us, and when He brings Mashiach, there's going to be a path forward for us to serve Him properly in the days of Mashiach. A lot of guys, when they start believing in Mashiach, they start worrying. I'm not sure I'm really ready, or that I will like that life. People worry they won't like it. So am I going to have to learn the whole day? What's it going to be like? I don't know if I can do that. And it's important. Part of that would be tachin and emunah is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu knows us. You know, Hashem knows us. It's not like He's going to have this awful discovery after Mashiach comes. There are some guys that have a hard time learning. No, Hashem knows us. And when He brings Mashiach, He's going to have a plan for us. And part of that plan will be that our hearts will be open in a way they were never open before. And part of the plan will be, I'm sure, a path forward for all of us who don't feel as close to Torah, maybe as the days of the Pnei Yeshua or the Chassam Sofer. And still, there's going to be, Be'ezer Hashem, a beautiful, wonderful, exciting, joyful path forward for all of us.